Like animations on social media platforms feel alive and are designed to keep you engaged in the content, and those same principles can be applied to motion graphics that we create in DaVinci Resolve. In this video, I'm going to take you through step-by-step recreating a like animation and discuss all of those motion design principles along the way. I've also linked today's project file down below so that way you can download it for free and follow along. The like animation that I want to recreate is the YouTube one because a few years ago they redesigned it so that way it's not as basic and it looks pretty good now. Here's what I ended up recreating in Fusion, and if you want to compare it to the real deal, just press the like button on this video. For those that don't want to like the video yet, here is the side-by-side comparison. I'm going to earn that like by the end of the video. Inside of Fusion, I just have this media in, and this is the actual like animation on YouTube that I just got through a screen recording. So the thing that we need to do is build the structure of the graphic first. And we're going to build this entire thing inside of the shape system, so that way we can take advantage of the vector system, so that way we don't need to worry about any sort of quality loss. But the first element is going to be this box, so let's do Shift Space S Rectangle, add that in, and then Shift Space S Render, so that way we can convert this vector image into pixels, and that way we can view it and use it in the rest of the composition. So with our final product on the right and the original off on the left, I'm going to click on the rectangle and come into the viewer controls and then just shrink this down so that way it fits on the box, it goes all the way to the edge, and then in the inspector what we can do is grab the corner radius and bring this all the way up so it is that pill shape. Now to get the color, over here my mouse is hovering on the like animation, which gives it that light gray look, so the main color is going to be this dark gray off to the side. So let's come into the style tab, grab the little color picker, and then bring this over and drop it on that gray, so that way it transfers that same color. The next thing we want is to get this divider in the middle. So the way I'll do that is by grabbing another S rectangle. We're going to merge this up after the first one, and then again off on the left side what I'm going to do is shrink this down and align it so that way it fits on this bar. Alright, now before going through and creating this like animation, we need to have a thumb that we can actually animate. So in this case, if we watch here, you'll see that the size of this changes when it's solid versus an outline. So the outline is expanding both inward and outward from the edge of this, and then the solid one is just a little bit smaller. So what we're gonna do is outline the solid one, and then that way we can get the sizes perfect. So if I grab an S polygon node, I'm gonna show off a bunch of cool stuff here for doing this, but on the first one, we're gonna start right before this rounded edge, and then I'm gonna click and drag up just so we can add a little bit of rounding right away. Then we're going to come to the top, click and drag to smooth this out and just match it around that point. We're not going to get too close with this because we're going to go through and refine it after. So then just go around, click and drag here to add in another point to try and follow that curve. We can follow the straight line all the way up until it starts rounding again, and then just add in some more points around the top of the thumb. Now when you're doing this, you do want to have as few points as possible because it's just going to make the animation process a lot easier and easier to just stay consistent with the shape of the hand. And no matter what we do, it's going to be impossible to get this exactly perfect, so you don't want to waste hours and hours tracing out this icon when you can get 99% of the way there in just a couple of minutes. But once I close this polygon out, I'm going to view this off to the side just by connecting it up like so. A really nice way to smooth this out and get everything to work is to move the points up, select both of them, and then do Shift S. So what Shift S does is it smooths out those points so that way the handles create a nice rounded edge. Now in this case, we don't want any curves right here. We want this to just be a straight line. So if I select these 2 points, I can do Shift L, and that's going to set those to be linear points. And the nice thing about that is it's not going to affect this curve up here. So I'm going to keep doing that. This one, we're going to do Shift L to make that a linear one. Might move this point down, do Shift S on these to smooth those out. Grab this one and the one up here, do Shift L, and then just keep doing that all the way around the thumb to get those nice edges. Now another really nice trick for changing handles in Fusion, like this one, I want to shrink these handles in for both sides. If I select this one and this point down here, I can hold down W and then just click and drag, and what it's going to do is change the length of those handles. So in this case, I want to make these quite a bit smaller, and it's a really good way to not mess up the direction that the handles are going, but just shrink them in to make it less intense. And we could do the same thing in reverse by selecting these ones and pressing W, so that way we can extend them and make them a little bit longer. The next few things that we're going to do is come over into the inspector, right click on this and remove the shape animation, so that way there's no keyframes on it. And we're going to name this. We're going to do press F2 with the node selected, like underscore, and then do solid. And now if I copy this and paste it, we're just going to replace this input, do like underscore outline, And now in the inspector, we want to uncheck solid and then bring up the border width until we match the outline that we see over here on the side. So we have our solid version and we have the outline version, so we can get on to the animation. The first design principle that I want to talk about for the YouTube like animation is just the energy that the like animation has, and there's a few different ways that they achieve this. One of them is how much it interacts with the stuff around it. When you put the mouse over the like button, it changes the color a little bit, and when you click on it, not only does the animation happen, but the background flashes and this border around it appears. Instead of having the impact just on the like animation, it spreads it out to the elements around it, so that way it feels bigger and like it has more energy. The second thing that they do is a lead-in animation. This is an age-old animation trick that's been used in motion graphics and cartoons for ages. So instead of going right into the animation, it builds up to that animation. And building off of that principle is elastic animations. That's where something is going to move back and forth a little bit before it eventually comes to a stop. It's much more pleasing to look at and helps make the animation feel alive. Now that's not all that the YouTube like animation does, but let's build out the animation a little before we talk about the other stuff. Okay, so I did a few things here just to make it look a little bit more complete. So I named it a divider, I put all of that into a second merge, we'll talk about that in just 1 second. I added in some text that just has the number of likes and dislikes, and then I added a dislike outline, which is the same thing with a 180 Z rotation, and then the offset just moved over a little bit. The reason that I want to put all of this in a second merge node is so that way I can change the order that it's layered. Working with merge nodes or S-merge nodes is a little confusing because they have an unlimited amount of inputs, but they do stack on top of each other. So what happens is stuff is layered in the order we create it, and it's really annoying to move that around. So anytime you want something to come on top of another object, just use another S-merge node. In this case, what I'm going to do is take the like animations and we're going to put this in another S-merge node just so that way it is coming on top of absolutely everything. Now the first thing that we want to recreate is this mouse hover animation and the little brightness flash that happens. To do that, I'm going to grab an S rectangle and I want to set this to be half of the screen. If I take the X offset, set this to be 0.5, it's going to put it all the way on the right side, and then I'll grab the width, bring this up to 1, and the height up to 1. What that's doing is making a shape that's going to be on the right half of the image and not on the left half. If I grab an S Boolean node, what this allows us to do is some math as we compare two different images. If I grab the S rectangle, which is our pill, I should name this, we're going to do pill underscore shape. And then if I grab the rectangle, which we're going to do pill underscore mask, when I connect those into the S Boolean and view this off on the right, what you see is it's only going to show the pill where the mask is allowing it. But if we come into the S Boolean, we could set the operation to be something like subtract, so that way instead of showing it where the mask is, it's going to hide it where the mask is. If I view the S render, I'm going to take this and put this into the S merge node, so that way it's put on top of it. And after the S Boolean, shift space S change style, which allows us to change the color of this graphic. What we're going to do first is grab just the hovering color, so that's going to be when there's no animation happening. So that'll be about right here. I'm going to grab that color picker, grab that gray color, and now you can see it has that hover state over the button. I did notice that this outline is a little bit too far to the left, so what we're going to do is grab the divider, come to the controls, and then shift the X offset so that way it's touching the edge right there. And let's name this change style so it's easy to find. We're going to do hover underscore state. Then if I copy and paste this, I'm going to do hover underscore flash, because this is going to be the brighter animation that we do. And I'm going to take the same output from the S Boolean and then connect this to the merge node. Now if we go to when this brightens up and has that flash, which is right away at the beginning, I'm going to grab this color picker, drag this over so that way we can select that color as well. This will be the first animation that we do. So on the first frame, we're going to add a keyframe to the opacity and then just use the arrow keys to walk forward until this fully dims, which is right about here. We'll grab the opacity and bring this down. Now, if we watch this, it has this little flash when we click on it and the animation starts. What I'm going to do is go back 1 frame, so we're on frame -1, and set the opacity to be 0, because eventually what I want to do is shift this animation over so that way we can see this before the like button was pressed. But the next thing that we want to do is make this little outline. And this might look like it's really hard to do because we have a shape that has corner radius on one side but not on the other. But because we're working in the shape system, there are some really nice tools that make this process easy. What we want to start with is the S outline node. And we already have just this section of the pill. If I view the S Boolean, you can see it's just going to be this left section of the like button. And if I take the S Boolean, put this into the S outline, and then view this off to the side, we have the outline on its own. The issue with the outline on its own, if I just drag this down and merge this on the merge, is this is going to be extending past the button. So you might have guessed we need to use another S Boolean node. After the S outline, shift space, S Boolean, and what I'm going to do is put that into the yellow input and then take the other S Boolean into the green input. And so what that's going to do is make sure that the outline only shows up inside of that button. Zooming into the middle divider, I want this outline to match this divider. So if I just grab the thickness and drag this down, if you hold down Control on your keyboard, you get really fine adjustments of these controls in the inspector. So we'll bring this down until it's exactly the same size, and now we have that outline. In this outline, if we move over, when we see it, it's totally bright. It's basically the same color as this other divider. So we're going to keep it simple. Come into the S Boolean, set the style mode to replace, and then the style we're going to set to match that dividing bar. Now, if you pay attention, you see that this hover animate or this outline animation takes place a few frames after the hover animation. So let's go to frame 2, which is when it is off the screen. We'll set the opacity to be 0, add a keyframe, move 1 frame forward, and bring the opacity up to 1. Now we're going to scrub through until that fully disappears, which is about frame 13 or 14. So we'll bring the opacity down to remove that. So when you press play, you can see we have that energy from the hover animation, that flash, as well as the outline coming onto the screen. And a really nice thing for working on short animations like this, we can grab the render end and bring this all the way close to, like, let's say frame 36. So that way it starts looping this animation a lot sooner, and that way we don't have to move the playhead every time we want to see a play again. All right, so this is a little confusing. Let's name this Boolean to be, we'll do border underscore flash. That way, again, it's easy to see exactly what's happening. And we'll shift all this over just to organize this and make it look a little bit more pretty. All right, this whole section right here is going to be the background pill animation. And then right here is going to be the layout, and then this one is going to be the like animation. For the like animation, if we look at the original, you can see it's going to start on the outline. The outline is going to have that small lead-in animation. It's only going to be there for like 2 frames. Then it's going to switch to the solid thumb and then do rest of the like animation. So let's start with the outline. What we're going to do is go to the first frame that it starts animating and then go 1 frame before that. On this frame, we're going to add a keyframe, and this is going to be the just normal state. And before you do any animations on these like polygons, what you want to do is copy one of them, paste it off to the side, and do like backup. That way, if you mess something up, you can always go back to the original version and you don't need to go through and trace it out again. So on the like outline, I can't wait to share some of this stuff because there's a lot of really cool tricks for animating this that just make it so much easier. So moving to the next frame, this is really the only one that we have to animate with the like outline. We're going to select all of these points, and then in the inspector, there's some controls that we can use to manipulate all of these points at once, more than just moving it around on the screen. So if we hold down S and then click somewhere on the screen, that's going to set the pivot point, and it's going to scale from that section. So if I click S right up here with the thumb, it's going to scale from the thumb. If I do it over here from the wrist, it's going to scale from the wrist. And then of course, if I do it in the center, it's going to scale right there. And I can do the same thing by holding T and then moving this back and forth to twist it around. And for some reason, you can see that these keyframe or the splines are glitching around. I don't know why it's been doing that, but what you want to do is move until you find a spot that it doesn't glitch, or just do really small movements so that way it doesn't distort all of those points. So in this case, we just want to twist it just ever so slightly, and then we can grab these points, move it over. And what we want to do is fit these polygons inside of the reference shape. And you can use those same keyboard shortcuts on just a few of the points. So if I grab these points on the thumb and then hold down T to twist this, you can see it's only going to apply to these points. So I had to go through and do some manual adjustments there, and then you might want to select some of these and then do, Shift S to smooth them out. But there we go, we're following that animation. If we look on our final version, it is doing exactly the same thing. Now to switch over to the solid version, we're gonna use, of course, the switch node. So if I do the switch node, this works inside of the shape system, no problem. We're gonna find the last frame that we're gonna see the outline on, which is this one, add a keyframe, and then on the next frame, we're gonna switch this to be input 1. And for input 1, we're just gonna plug in the like solid, and then that way we can see the solid thumbs up. Now, instead of going from the beginning to the end, we're gonna animate this one in reverse. We're gonna animate it from its final state, which is going to be at the end of the animation, at let's say frame 33. So we're gonna set a keyframe right here and then move backwards in time until it comes to a rest. So it comes to a rest right here before it switches directions. So what we'll do is find that frame. We're gonna grab all of these, hold down T and twist this ever so slightly, and then we can move these around and again, just fit this to be the solid shape. Now the thumb up here is where most of that animation is gonna happen. So again, select these points, hold down T to just twist those ones, and then just fit this around. And you can see using those keyboard shortcuts makes it really easy to do these animations compared to moving all of these keyframes on their own. And you wanna make sure that we still preserve all of these curves in the thumb so that way we can still recognize that it's a thumb and it just doesn't turn into a random blob. All right, and once we have that one pretty close, it's not going to follow in the middle yet because we haven't added in any easing, and there's some easing on the animation. So don't worry about that. Just make sure that we get all of the resting states right. So here's the first resting state, here's the second one, and then if we go back, this will be the third resting state. So I'm going to select all of these points, twist it a bunch, and then hold down S. I gotta select all these, hold down S, and then scale it up, and then we can move this back and forth to position it over the hand. Now, as you look to, the thumb eventually fully disappears. So what we're gonna do is go to the frame right before that happens, select all of these, and again, match it to that section. Then once that's done, we're gonna go back one frame to when the thumb disappears, align all of this again, and then do something different with the thumb. So once we're here, let's grab these points, and then what we're gonna do is just place all of these on this line where the thumb disappeared. We don't need to worry about the handles right now. There's a really easy way to fix that. Once we get all of those on the same line, what we're gonna do is do Shift L on our keyboard, so that way we remove all of those handles and it's just a perfectly straight line. You might have to do some adjustment because it's pretty hard to just eyeball that. But once we hit play, we now have a like animation that's getting there, but the thing that we need to add yet is some easing. So let's grab the spline editor, and then over here we're gonna select like outline, like solid, and then view both of those in the spline editor. And one thing in the spline editor is you want to come over to the three dots and then do show only selected tool. So that way you only see the tools that you actually want to. Now for this, the easing is actually quite easy. Just press F after selecting all the keyframes, press T, and then we can link these together and then just bring up the ease in a little bit. And when I hit play, we now have a lot more life and energy to this animation. So you can go in and tweak those a little bit more if you want, but for the case of this video, we're gonna keep the animation just like that. And this is looking really good, but it's missing one important thing, and that's gonna be the next design principle, which is reactions. Whenever you click the like button, you get a burst of particles that look really cool and grab your attention. They're there to reward you for clicking the like button and make you want to do it again in the future. Assisting this are the bright colors and uniqueness of the animation. Now YouTube does use the same particle animation every time, but it's hard to pick up on that because of how small and how quick the animation is. It never feels repetitive, and that's the goal. Before that, maybe you're in a position that you're just learning Fusion or having trouble understanding the basic parts of the program. If that's you, I put together a Fusion Fundamentals course, which gives you a solid understanding of Fusion's foundations. That's stuff like nodes, resolution, color management, masks, animation, and much more. Plus, with the course, you'll get free access to the Fusion Mastery community, where I'm going to be answering questions and you can connect with others learning Fusion. If that sounds interesting to you, check out the link down below to learn more and sign up today. Now, back to the video. If we break this down, you can see we have all of these different bars zooming out, or little pills that eventually just zoom down and fall away. And we have two different elements. We have the red one, and then we have the slightly smaller pink one. So let's grab a S rectangle and start working on creating this. We're going to take the rectangle off in the left viewer, center it on this first pill, and then shrink this down so that way we can get the size of this. And once we have the size down, we're just going to add in some corner radius so that way we have that pill shape, and then I'm going to double click on the X offset and the Y offset to put that back in the center. If we go to the first frame that these pills show up, I'm just going to grab the Y offset and set this so it matches and it's about the same. We're going to add in a keyframe on the Y offset, and then we're going to move forward until they start to zoom down, let's say right about there, and then move this up so it about matches that same height. Now this is going to be below the thumb animation, so what I'm going to do is move all of this over, bring the S rectangle over, and we're going to add in another S merge so we can layer those in. If we watch the like animation, you can see eventually this pill seems to hit a wall where it just starts getting cut away. And the way that we're going to do that is by grabbing yet another S rectangle, and then in the first one, we're going to copy the width value. Then in the second one, we're going to paste the width, set the corner radius to be 1, and now we can use this height to determine when it's actually going to be cut away. And the way we cut it away is again by using an S Boolean node. With the S Boolean, we're going to take the S rectangle and plug that in, and right away it's set to the correct mode of intersection, so it's only going to show this first one where the second one exists. If we go to the final frame of our animation, we're going to grab the second rectangle and then just drag the height down until we only have a little dot. And in the S Boolean, we're going to set the style to match the color of the original pill, which is just a red. This is what we have so far. And to make it so that this animates on and appears in the S Boolean, we're going to go to the first frame of the animation, set the opacity to 1, and then right before that, set the opacity to be 0. To get this to animate off at the end, you can see it's just a scaled down animation. And we want to be able to scale our rectangle, but also the mask at the same time. So after the S Boolean, we're going to add in an S transform. And if we go up here until the final spot, we want to grab the Y pivot and make sure that that is centered on this dot, so that way it scales down to the center of the dot instead of the center of the image. If I right click on the Y size, I'm going to do expression and then link this to the X size, so that way both of these adjust the same. And then if we go and look at a reference animation, it starts scaling down right about here, so we'll add in a keyframe and then move forward until these are completely gone, let's say frame 24, and bring the X size all the way down to 0. So now it animates up and then eventually scales down. Before we duplicate all these and make a bunch of copies, I'm going to select all of these, move them up, copy them, and then paste it up here, and then merge this after the other transform node. After the size animation, we're going to add in another transform node and then just offset the rotation so that way we have a second copy, and this is going to be the pink copy. So let's go into the S Boolean, we'll come to the style and set this to be a pink color. And then in the S rectangle, what I want to do is bring the width down just a little bit, as well as the height down to make it a smaller pill. And whatever we set the width to in this one, we need to copy and put it in the mask rectangle, so that way, you know, it erodes and eats away, no problem. All right, once that's done, we actually want to figure out what the perfect rotation angle for this will be, so that way it's all perfectly spaced. So right now we have 5 different copies. So let's take 360, the amount of degrees in a circle, and then divide that by 5. So what that's going to do is put it at the next spot that the red pill would have to be, but we want this to be in between. So we're going to take whatever the result is, 72, and then divide that by 2. And that'll put it perfectly in between both of those red points when we end up duplicating it. So let's do that right now. After this S merge, shift space as duplicate, and we're going to use an expression to make this nice and easy. Down on the rotation, right click, come to expression. We're going to do 360 and divide this by the copies. So the copies is going to be this control all the way up here. And if we set this to be 5, we're going to have 5 copies of this pill that are spread around. But as you can see, the animation goes all crazy when they try and zoom out here. And that's because of this axis mode, which is basically the pivot mode. We need to set this to be absolute so that way the pivot controls don't change at all. And now we have that burst and they eventually scale down at the end. Okay, but there's still a few things that we need to do. First, we need to get this over the like animation, but then we also need to make this fall away animation and then do easing on the entire thing. After the S duplicate, add in an S transform, and this one is going to be to center it. So if we go over here or right when it's starting, we can just shift this over and make sure that this is showing up behind the thumbs up animation. Awesome. And right before that, we're going to add in another transform node that'll have some animations on all of these different dots at the same time. On frame 12, when the animation is kind of in the middle, let's add a keyframe on the X size and then right click on the Y size expression to tie those two together. And then what I'm going to do is go all the way back to the first frame that these appear, and we're just going to take the X size and then shrink this down to something like 0.7. So that way there's just a little bit more of a scale animation across all of those different pills. And then again, right about at that midpoint, we're going to add a keyframe on the Y offset as well as the rotation. And then if we go forward until the animation is complete, we're just going to shift this down a very little bit and then just add a couple of degrees of positive rotation. And when I hit play, you can see it has that little fall away animation at the end. Now the final touch is to smooth this out and add some easing. So let's open the spline editor. We want to bring in this transform. We want to bring in these 2 transforms, and then we don't need to bring in the Booleans because those just have the instant opacity animation. If I select all of these in the spline editor, we're just going to select this, press F, and then most of the easing is going to be on these middle ones. We just want to extend that out just a little bit. And when I press play, you can see that is a much more lifelike and good looking animation. All right, you've made it to the end and hopefully learned a lot and are ready to start using some of these motion design principles in your own motion graphics to keep your viewers engaged and reward them with some dopamine. I also hope that I've earned your likes, so press that button if you haven't already. If you want to learn Fusion or even just access the Fusion Mastery community, check out my Fusion Fundamentals course linked down below. It's a great way to learn Fusion and is going to make it way easier to build this type of stuff for yourself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.